Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as FDRs, but hey, it's something. Now, the only thing I have to say in regards to, like, quote-unquote housekeeping is that I posted a video that I think you all should give a listen to. It's a transcription of a song that was written by one of the activists that is on the Freedom Flotilla that, as of the time I'm recording this, I don't know if at the time of the release date of this episode will be... Let's just say at one point I planned on, I mean, when I heard the song, I just started listening to it over and over and over again, and I was just like, I think it would be interesting to have like one of those official lyric videos because it's available in a YouTube short, and I just want to make sure that it's like, you know, available for people to listen to it who don't want to like specifically put it on the YouTube short version. Plus the YouTube short version, like the transcription is a little off. Like one of the first lines is, break the siege of deception, but the transcription does not say that. And there's another part where it's like, first it's Palestine and then it is you, but it just says first it's Palestine and then it doesn't say the second part. So yeah, give it a listen if you haven't already. I think that song should be way more well known, especially if any incident happens. With that out of the way, let's get right into the news. First news story is the South Korean presidential election. Shock of all shocks, I was right, and Lee Jae-myung won the South Korean presidency. 49-41, and the election, I think this one kind of solidified sort of the two-party rule of South Korea. Like, South Korea's two-party rule was already, like, basically completely solidified, but there was one chance for the Reform Party to possibly pull out an edge, because, like, Lee Jun-suk, who was the liberal, who was the Reform Party candidate, he was like, I want to run a very good campaign. Like, he's even considered a major candidate on the wiki page, but he basically said, one of the big things I want is that I want my party to have at least 10% of the votes, and he only got 8, so, you know, it's a little bit of a issue. Lee Jae-myung is moving forth with his plan to, quote, build a nation for ordinary citizens. And, like, he's trying to, like, again, like, paint the whole, like, sort of populist train alongside trying to bridge divides, while his opposition party is, of course, burning to the ground because it's just, like, they don't know what to do now. So it's like, I don't know. But basically, it seems like for the time being, Democratic Party of Korea is definitely going to be winning this time around, and just definitely going to have some fun in their current legislative agenda. Alright, so there's not much else I can say, but next news story is another election that I didn't get to cover because there wasn't much news about it before it happened, and it was the Mexican judicial elections, because Mexico, remember, one of AMLO's promises near the end of his term, and one of Claudia Sheinbaum's first things to do in this term, was that she and him wanted to, like, make it so that that justices in the country were elected rather than, appointed. And there's a lot of things that happen. So what ended up happening is that they passed the law, and it says that all 9 Supreme Court justices, they originally had like 12, but they lowered it to 9, and then also made it so that they're elected positions. All 9 Supreme Court justices were elected on June 1st. 2 magistrates of the Superior Chamber of the Electoral Tribunal of the Federal Judiciary get elected. 15 magistrates of the regional chambers get elected. 5 members of the Judiciary Disciplinary Tribunal get elected, 464 Circuit Court magistrates get elected, and 386 District Court judges get elected. Basically, how they determine the rest of the ones on the bottom was that half of them, like all the ones except for the Supreme Court, like the Supreme Court gets, each of those 9 justices gets one 12-year term. And then there was like a decent number of like lower judges that was like, okay, what do we do about them? So what happened is that they decided to take those ones and then randomly divide each of those ones in half. And then half of them are going to got elected on the 1st of June, and then the other half will get elected in 2027. And the way that they divide the Supreme Court is that 5 of the seats on the Supreme Court are going to be actually designated towards women. Like 5 women justices will be on the Supreme Court, and 4 will be men. At least for this election. I don't know if this is going to be like a thing that they switch around every so often, or if this is just the results of the election, but like, basically, all those ones get elected. Like, every single candidate runs in the election, and there were a lot of candidates that ended up running. If I'm not miscounting, there were 64 candidates for the Supreme Court of Mexico. And you would basically be given the option to vote 9 of them, with the idea of vote for 4 women and vote for 5 women, 4 men. Basically like that. And then top 9 vote getters get the seats. And I don't know if all of the Supreme Court justices got to run for re-election, but basically, I don't remember if this, I don't know, I've been checking, but I can't find anything that says it, but I don't know if all the justices that were had already served a long time on the court weren't allowed to run, but 3 Supreme Court justices did run for re-election, and they did win. And the Supreme Court justices that are currently on the Mexican Supreme Court, or at least will be on the Mexican Supreme Court by September, because that's when they get sworn in, are Hugo Aguilar Ortiz, Lenia Batres Guadarrama, Yasmin Esquivel Mosa, Loretta Ortiz Ajif, Maria Estela Rios Gonzalez, Giovanni Azazel Figuera Mejia, Irving Espinoza Bentazo, Aristides Rodrigo Guerrero Garcia, and Sarah Irene Herrerias Guerrera. I'm pronouncing probably all those names wrong, but regardless, those are the Supreme Court justices that will be serving. Lenia, Yasmin, and Loretta are incumbents, and they ran for election. There were a lot of people who were not so happy with the Supreme Court being elected and would rather keep them as appointed positions for whatever reason. And one of the big things that they argued was a problem is that this would break the impartiality of the court, or it would politicize the court. And it's the court is already politicized, that's obvious. I made a whole fucking YouTube video basically explaining you can't depoliticize a fucking court because the court is law. Laws are political and philosophical. Literally. This is just, I don't get this whole argument alleging that this would be democratic backsliding or blah blah blah. To which is this don't make no sense at all. It's the Mexican people gets to vote for their justices. Man, democracy is failing in the country. Oh my goodness. And this was the thing that they've been saying, that the Mexican opposition had been saying for a long time. And here's what happened. Mexican opposition were so mad at this that not only were they basically saying, if we ever get back into power, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to try and end this and get rid of this, and anybody who gets elected under this position, we're going to criminally investigate in case to find out if they're allegedly part of criminal gangs or if they have ties to Morena, which is a stupid thing already because some of the fucking incumbent Supreme Court members were already members of Morena. Again, it's dude, are you guys stupid? They were members of the court that were members of the PAN. What are you talking about? This is stupid. But one of the big things that they said is that in order to show how bad this was and how evil this was, the Mexican opposition decided to take a page out of the Venezuelan opposition's handbook and decided that the best course of action for them to oppose this election would be to boycott it. And they actively made people say, you should not come to vote. Or if you do vote, blank vote. Invalid vote. Invalidate your ballot. Make it so that this election is wrong and bad and evil. Try to ruin this election. And, as such, this election ended up only getting 13% of the Mexican voters to vote. Only 13% of the Mexican electorate turned out to vote. 13 million voters. For comparison, 100% of the Mexican voting population is around 58 million people. 58 million people are the total voting population of Mexico, or at least that's how many people voted in the 2024 presidential election. And 13% only voted in this election. Now, of course, you need to understand, because this is the thing about, because one of the big things AMLO and Claudia Sheinbaum and Morena have been trying to do is they've been trying to push for referendums, push for ballot initiatives, push for things to make sure that the people of Mexico are always politically active, that they're always willing to turn out. They're always willing to turn out and make their voices heard. And they've been doing it for, remember, AMLO, basically every time he wanted to do a big policy position, the first thing he'd do is he'd go to the INE and say, hey, let's put a ballot initiative on there. If this gets this amount of votes, I will vote. If a majority of people vote for this, I will vote. I will go and do this. And even though he never ended up getting enough people to actually make a legitimate, thing, Like, he held a referendum on the Tren Maya. He held a referendum on his own presidential term. He held a referendum on the Mexican presidential, like, fucking court cases. Like, I want, like go after all the Mexican presidents for all their criminal actions. And, like, him and Jae-myung have been trying desperately to make sure that the Mexican people always turn out to vote. And I guess I could pull up I can actually pull up the referendum results to show you, like, how this has been going. His first referendum was the first Mexican referendum sort of thing was the Tren Maya. And only 100,940 people voted in that referendum. Then came the corruption trial referendum. 6,663,208 people voted in that referendum. Then the recall referendum happened. 16,502,636 people voted. So yes, well, the number did go down. Like, you could see that as AMLO and I would presume Sheinbaum keep doing these referendums, more people are turning out to vote and making their voices heard in these issues. And Sheinbaum even decided to do one funny thing, especially because, like, again, like, Sheinbaum, of course, thinks that this is good and this is great and whatever. And she makes this interesting point. 13 million people turned out to vote in this referendum. That is more than the amount of people who voted for the PRD in the last presidential election. That's more than the amount of people who voted for the Labour Party in the last election. That's more than the people who voted for the Ecologist Party, or the PRI, or the PAN, or the Citizens Movement. All those parties got less votes than the people who voted in this judicial referendum. Like, I mean, it's the same thing with, like, it's like, oh, only this many people voted in the midterms versus this many people who voted in the presidential election. It's like, yeah, no shit, during a presidential election, more people are going to turn out than people who are going to vote in the fucking, like, 2021, like, off-year elections. No, duh. There are going to be considerably less people who turn out to vote for elections in 2025 than there will be people who vote in the elections of 2026, and presumably people who are going to vote in 2028 if that election happens. Are those elections not valid because, only this many people show up to vote? It's like, no. Again, this is the stupidest thing ever. It's like, these guys are like, man, we hate this election so much that we're literally going to allow Morena to win the elections? Wow. What a great strategy. Man, it's the same thing with the fucking Venezuelan opposition. It's like, oh, magic. Like, it's like, man, these elections that Chavez are running are fucking rigged. So we're not going to run in these elections. See how you like that. It's like, are you stupid? But of course, none of these people are going to actually learn anything about this. They don't know anything about Mexican politics. All they know about Mexican politics is what they've seen on the media. And of course, since they're all blind sheep, they're going to follow everything. Same thing happened with, like, there was another story that happened where a mayor of a Mexican, like, during, like similar elections, like, there were other elections that were held that same day. And there was a candidate for a mayoral election that happened. Like, it was a while before. I don't remember how long ago it was, but, like, she was running for this election and then she got shot and murdered. And then a bunch of conservative accounts started going, oh, this is so terrible. This is so bad. Man, Claudia Sheinbaum is in the pocket of the cartel. She's letting the cartels roam free in her area. Oh, she's using her cartel agents to, like, fucking murder all of her political opposition. Oh, and they're basically, like, goading people to try and, like, get in a war with Mexico. And then it's like, I literally responded to one of them. I only responded to one of them. I could have responded to all these people, but it's like, I only decided to respond to one of them because they were so stupid. Because it's like, okay, I said point blank, I know you're probably too stupid to read, so let me explain this in, like, the most basic sense. So I pulled up a picture of the woman who is running, who was the mayoral candidate that got shot, and Claudia Sheinbaum, and I pointed out this fact. I said, notice how both of them are wearing the same color vest? That's because that is effectively the party uniform of the party of Morena. Huh, that's interesting. So wait. So it was interesting. Like, it's like, you claim, like, oh, the cartels are running this country. It's like, but then coincidentally, it's the government. It's the party that is the government of Mexico that keeps getting targeted by the cartels, getting murdered by the cartels. Those are the ones who keep getting murdered. And then you're gonna also claim, but you don't understand. Like, they're secretly the ones who are controlling the cartels. Like, you guys are stupid. You know nothing, and flat out, it's racist. So let's move on to the next story because I could go on and on about that. But this is not about that. Next story is coming from a very more racism, I guess. And believe it or not, it's not who you think it is. We're going to go to New Zealand because there was a bill in the legislative chamber of New Zealand, and the bill was going to be a re-examination of the Treaty Principles Bill, because New Zealand was, I covered it in my election analysis of the most recent New Zealand election, where I pointed out how New Zealand, of all of like the Western nations, is the one that probably has the best relationship with its indigenous population. And it's because they negotiated a treaty very early on that actually basically allowed Maori people a lot of rights. But one of the big things that's been going on is that the right-wing parties have been quote-unquote trying to re-examine that original bill. And, of course, this is a very troubling thing, because like the Treaty of Waitangi is like, it explicitly gives the Maori people a lot of rights. But the right-wing parties have tried to make the claim like, we're past the point where this is needed. And it's like, what you're saying is you want to try and get rid of those enshrined indigenous rights. And in New Zealand, there is a party that is explicitly about the Maori population, the Maori Party, as it's aptly named. And they've gotten into a lot of issues with the New Zealand Parliament because they uphold their actual fucking traditions of their people, and that has led to a lot of controversy. One of the first controversies that I remember from this was when their party's co-leader, Ngarewa-Packer, like basically said, I will not wear a tie because it is not part of my culture, and he took off his tie, and then every time he tried to like talk to the legislature, they kept saying, no, we're not going to listen to you because you're not wearing a tie, because he wasn't following the quote-unquote dress code. And then he threw him out of the chamber because of this. And then it's like, well, then they magically changed the rules because, like, yeah, this is a stupid rule. Like, what? Like, this is the thing that's stupid. It's like, why are these stringent rules like this for, like, fucking this? Regardless. What ended up happening is that one of the most frequent things that they do is that if they're not particularly a fan of a bill and they don't really get their voices heard, they hold a traditional protest haka, a ceremonial dance of the Maori people, which usually involves like vigorous movements and stomping of the feet rhythmically, like with like some like vocalization. It's a common thing that happens with the Maori Party when there's a bill or a thing that they don't like and they want to protest against it. And now what has ended up happening is that 3 of their MPs who participated in the haka are now banned from the New Zealand Parliament. One of them, like the leader of the party, is banned for 7 days, with Ngarewa-Packer and Debbie Ngarewa-Packer being banned for 21 days. These bans being the longest a person has been banned from the New Zealand Parliament. The previous record has been 3 days. Again, it's very coincidental that it's when Maori members of the parliament want to raise their voices and make concerns, magically those guys are being banned for like fucking like multiple weeks on end. Meanwhile, it's like, oh, when it was white people, they get banned for like at most 3 days. Like, I mean, just unequivocally, it's racism. Like, I mean, the parliamentary, like, I mean, and this is the thing, every time the fucking, like, heads of the parliament try to do everything they're trying to be like, oh, no, you don't understand, it's not racist. It's like, really? You keep targeting the Maori, you keep targeting the, like, 5 or so Maori MPs, and keep trying to get them in trouble and removing them from the fucking, like, legislature. You keep doing that to them. It's interesting. You keep doing it to them. And it's only when they, like, follow their own fucking, like, actual tradition and culture. And their logic is like, oh, we think that other parliamentarians will feel threatened. It's like, again, just racism. Like, there's not much else I can say. This is just blatant, like, absolute, unequivocal racism. Speaking of racism and banning of MPs, I guess we should move on to talk about Israel. Because, you know, Israel just keeps doing things that they just kind of keep proving. Again, it's like the same thing. It's like Israel does, like, I mean, I could simply title this fucking, like, segment, Israel does evil things again. It's like, shocker, what else is new? Okay, so, here's what ended up happening. So, Ayman O'Day made a speech, and he made a speech, and it was like a very impassioned speech. It was a speech that involved a lot of left-wing activists in Israel, and he's it was an anti-war rally in Haifa, and it was a very big, impassioned speech that he gave. And Ayman O'Day of Hadash Ta'al, for those who don't know, Hadash Ta'al is like the only like fucking like member of the Knesset that's like based and red-pilled. But like anyways, they are like one of the best, like they're one of the best parties of the fucking Knesset and ever, and their MPs are like unequivocally opposed to Israel's genocide of the Palestinians, unequivocally. 2,000 people showed up, and he said, and this is, here's what happened. He gave one very important part of speech. And I'll read this part of the speech right here. He said, quote, Israel has become a pariah state across the world, among all nations and in the West. After more than 600 days of war, a majority among both peoples say, if only those days had never happened. It's a historic loss of the right-wing ideology that was crushed in Gaza. Gaza won, and Gaza will win. Basically, his speech is him saying, due to the actions Israel has done, effectively, Gaza has won in the long term. This is the thing. It's the same thing. It's like, no matter what happens, Gaza has won. The young people of this nation and every other nation around the world are unequivocally pro-Palestine. Even more importantly, they are anti-Israel. Even right-wingers, even young right-wingers are anti-Israel. Granted, they are anti-Israel for vastly different reasons, but the point is, Israel has done so much that whatever future they have doesn't exist anymore. Look at every single poll, every single analysis of people's views on Israel. Their views have radically shifted. Israel will never be popular in America ever again. It is done. The only reason that Israel hasn't lost every single piece of support is because the people in power, of course, benefit with Israel being in the position that it is. If the politicians didn't stand in the way, if the United States didn't have a fucking massive lobby for Israel, every pro-Israeli politician would be defeated in the 2026 election. Many countries that were once huge allies of Israel are now even the places that at least tolerated Israel's existence are now shifting. Spain has of course shifted drastically in their stance on Israel. Ireland, I don't know how close Ireland and Israel's relationship was prior, but I don't think they were extremely as hostile. The Irish population might be, but I don't think the Irish government was that hugely anti-Israel. Even pro-Israel governments are starting to take shifts. They're this is not and that was Ayman Odeh's analysis of the situation, not just in Israel but around the world. And naturally, that has led to 70 members of the Knesset to claim that Ayman Odeh is a terrorist and that he needs to be expelled from the Knesset for his evil terroristic language. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Yeah, they're so democratic that they ban Balad from participating in the elections. They try to get Ofer Kassif kicked out of the Knesset. When Hadash Tal screens a literal movie in Israel, their home base gets fucking raided by the IDF. People who refuse to participate in their genocide get arrested. It's just so unequivocally again, wow, so democratic. So democratic. Wow, we're so democratic. And this is a thing that happened. When that statement came out, a couple of Israeli politicians came out and started saying some fucking strange things. And this is one comment that I especially really want to fucking acknowledge. Okay, so there's a member of the Knesset named Yulia Malinkovsky who was, after Ayman Odeh said his thing, said, quote, I heard Ayman Odeh say at some demonstration that Gaza would win. So Ayman, you are welcome to go pack yourself and get on the aid trucks that unfortunately enter the strip and stay there. You are not welcome in Israel. Now, on one end, of course, that is a very shitty thing to say because, she's doing the same thing that it's if you're if you hate America so much, why don't you leave? That, of course, does not acknowledge any of the things that is even really being said. But here's another thing that is very fucking interesting. Okay, so I just want to mention this. Ayman Odeh was born on January 1st of 1975 in the city of Haifa, which is in Israel. All right? And Yulia Malinkovsky, she was born September 5th of 1975 in the Soviet Union. She literally, she is claiming that she has more ownership of Israel than fucking a guy who was literally born there. This is literally the thing that people keep saying about Zionism is colonialism. That is what it is. She is an immigrant from the Soviet Union who is literally there to say, hey, she's just hey, you, guy who was born here, get out. Again, to any other rational person that's insane, but to Zionists, it's this makes sense. It's the Jewish homeland. Duh. It's like, I'm Maori, I can't be there. He's not Jewish. He's an atheist. Ooh, that's so scary. So fucking, like, it's a fucking joke. This is a fucking joke. I can't believe this is the world we live in. And we have people unironically saying that this is okay. It's just so fucking, like, dude, come on. And let's see, like, I mean, with all this going on in Israel, I wonder what America is planning to do in regards to Israel. Well, Marco Rubio has announced that he's going to put sanctions on 4 international criminal court judges for targeting the U.S. and Israel. The United States is placing sanctions over 4 judges of the International Criminal Court for what it has called its illegitimate actions targeting the U.S. and Israel. The Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, announced that the sanctions in a statement on Thursday. They target, like, it doesn't really matter who they target, because, like, it's not the point of those specific ones. It's just because they're doing it because they don't want to be arrested for their own fucking war crimes. And that's the thing that is, like, always so fucking stupid. Again, it's just so, like, I mean, again, Zionists are just so blatantly obvious. Like, at this point in the year 2025, in this point in this year, if you are a Zionist, you are an ethno-nationalist, you are a racist, you are a bigot, you support ethno-states, you support breaking the law, you support the murder of children, you support the mass rape of prisoners, and, more importantly, you support reactionary politics. Because this is the thing. Notice again, it's always the reactionaries that are fucking targeting, that are all supporting Israel. Right now, Israel's biggest supporters are Donald Trump and Marco Rubio. That is a fact. You are in lockstep with Marco Rubio and fucking Donald Trump. You are in lockstep with the same people who are going to say things like all trans people are groomers. That you're in the same lockstep with those guys, and you're still going to somehow be like, no, you see, I'm actually like an arbiter of progressive values. No, you're not. You're not. You're a cocksucker for Trump and Rubio. That's what you are. This is a quote that I've heard before, and I'll say it again. To understand where you would be in activism of yesteryear, what are you doing today? And if you support Israel, I know exactly where you would have stood in every single historical conflict ever. Because Israel is literally doing the exact same things that most of these bad, evil regimes have done in the past, and you're sitting and going along with it. Liberal Zionists are doing the same thing. Like, if you're a Democrat that supports, like, I mean, this is a fact. If you're a person who is a liberal or quote unquote a progressive who's supporting Israel, again, you don't care about any of the issues you say. You could claim that you care about whatever fucking like pet issue you want. You don't. You don't care about human rights. You don't care about like supporting oppressed people. You don't care about any of that. You don't care because you're standing on the bodies of dead Palestinians to do that. Like literally, if you are a liberal politician and you have been advocating and supporting Israel throughout, like, I mean, I would have given you some leeway if you like pulled your support during 2024. Like 2024 is truly the last year you could have ever even remotely said anything pro-Israel and still have been like somewhat redeemable. At this point, there is no redeeming you. You are a horrid monster and you're disgusting. Like, an example of which is fucking Cory Booker. Cory Booker's like, I'm gonna stand up for human rights. I'm gonna stand up against the authoritarian takeover of the nation and their suppressing of the political opposition in America. Donald Trump is gonna do all these bad things. And then meanwhile, he is supporting Yair Gallant, who is of the party of Netanyahu, who is literally doing exactly that in Israel. Not just the Palestinians, but also to all the anti-genocide people in his own country. And even just sitting idly by, like, well, at least I'm not for Israel. I'm not for Israel, but I'm not really gonna. No. If you're not standing against them at this point, then yeah, you're also a snake. Silence is violence. The only people who benefit from your silence are the people who are doing the bad thing. Fuck Israel. Fuck Zionists. Fuck Zionism. Break the siege and free Palestine. But hey, maybe the opposition party might change their mind. Maybe they'll be a bit more nice. Maybe in this they'll finally be able to grow a backbone and do something. Well, Laura Gillen, Dan Goldman, Wesley Bell, Josh Gothmeier, Brad Schneider, Eugene Vindman, Louis Frankel, Debbie Weissman Schultz, Jared Moskowitz, Grace Meng, Frank Pallone, Ted Lieu, and Chris Pappas are joining with the Republican Party to try and make sure that we go to war with Iran. Huh. You know, normally opposition parties are supposed to like do the opposite of what the fucking like mainstream party does, but like, you know, I guess we just live in this fucking weird world where it's like, literally, bipartisan group of House is saying that they want no enrichment for Iran, and it's like they're doing they're like, we need to stop Iran from getting a nuclear energy source when Trump is not going to put a nuclear deal again. Like, Trump killed the Iran nuclear deal. Literally, like, the fucking war with Iran is coming. It's coming, dude. I mean, I don't know. At this point, we have to, like, hope Iran fucking has brains or something, which is, like, why we have to fucking, like, trust Iran to have, like, a backbone and brains and common sense in this issue? Why? Why do we have to trust them to make the right choice? The U.S. has been doing everything in its power for a while to try and goad Iran into fucking war. I don't know if, like, the Iranian Revolution, like, the U.S. aiding and abetting the fucking, like, Ayatollah getting power, and then the Iran fucking Contra affair. Obama, like, briefly did, like, hey, we'll try and, like, stop the Iran from getting nuclear weapons, and Donald Trump, the first thing he does is he pulls out of that deal, and then the last thing he does when he leaves office the last time is that he kills the top Iranian general in the military. Like, unequivocally, this is dumb. This is why? I'm just gonna say this right here, right now. I've already posted a tweet about this. It says, like, I'm not going to war with Iran. I'm not. If a war in Iran happens and then a draft comes, I'm not going. I'm saying this up here right now, right here, right now. Like, if a war happens with Iran and then I magically disappear, it's because like, I was arrested for, like, not participating in the draft. Like, unequivocally, no, I'm not doing that. And the article, of course, makes the big point, like, the pro-Israel Democrats are standing by this. No shit. The pro-Israel Democrats are doing this. It's because the U.S. doesn't want to go to a fucking war with Iran. That's stupid. Especially if Iran is fucking close to getting a nuclear arsenal. That's the dumbest thing you've ever heard. But, of course, Israel wants to go to war with Iran. And it's like, unequivocally, I'm not going to war with Iran. I'm not going to a country that I don't know to slaughter people I've never met for a man I didn't vote for on behalf of a country that I fucking despise. If Israel wants to go to fucking war with Iran, they could do it themselves. These are the same guys that also make the claim that Iran has, like, fucking, like, proxies all around the world that are, like, ready to join the battle. It's like, go against them yourselves, fucking losers. Unequivocally, Lauren Gillen, Claudia Tenney, Dan Goldman, Wesley Bell, Joe Wilson, Josh Gothmeier, Brad Schneider, Don Bacon, Eugene Vidman, Lois Frankel, Debbie Weissman-Schultz, Jared Moskowitz, Grace Meng, Frank Pallone, Ted Lieu, and Chris Pappas. Like, at best, they're just tools for, like, the fucking, like merchants of death. At worst, they're just fucking, like, warmongering traitors. It's just unequivocal. Not a single actual American wants to go to war with Iran. No one does. Israel wants to, and they want what Israel wants. These guys want what Israel wants. You guys want to go to war with Iran so much? Go to Israel, join the IDF, and then go to war with Israel. Go to war with Iran. Liberals and conservatives are so stupid. They don't understand anything about foreign policy. They don't understand anything about anything. Literally, don't understand nothing about nothing. Like, it's the same. It's like, literally, with Iran in specific, it's like, wow, why does Iran have all these weapons? Huh? Could it possibly have anything to do with the fact that Reagan fucking gave them weapons back in the 80s? And also the fact that Donald Trump literally got rid of the fucking plan to prevent them from getting weapons? Huh, why does Iran hate us? Huh, could it have anything to do with the fact that we've meddled in their country's affairs for long periods of time? And that we've always had a antagonistic perspective towards them? Huh, why do they not like us? We continue to aid and abet the one nation in the Middle East that they don't like, and we're told multiple times by multiple different fucking people, hey, if you guys stop giving aid to Israel, we'll leave you the fuck alone. And then we're just like, I wonder why they don't like us. Gee, this is a perplexing mystery. I guess we'll never know. Anyways, with that out of the way, let us move on to the main topic of this video. And it's a topic that you guys probably did not expect. Well, actually, one of you might expect it because one of you suggested it. But, like, I mean, and the only reason why I'm doing it, even though I've tried to say, like, there's an embargo on suggestions, but, you know, I mean, this I guess warrants somewhat of an explanation, and also I had a slot to fill, so why not? Remember the Ukraine war? The one that started in 2014, but it's kind of like explicitly got more attention ever since 2022 with the Russian invasion. If you get your news exclusively from me, then you might have forgotten about it at some capacity. First of all, you shouldn't get your news only from me. But second of all, you may have noticed that I haven't talked about the Ukrainian war in a while. I mean, I might have covered it in a news story here and there, but I actually checked, and I think I checked in the I checked in the descriptions. I looked up Russia and Ukraine. I think the last ones were literally in the hundreds of episodes ago. And yeah, I haven't really talked about the Russia-Ukraine war for a while. Granted, it seems that a lot of other people have kind of shifted away from talking about it as well, but I mean, I don't think I talked about it a lot even at the time. Again, I only covered it really in news stories. I've made 2 episodes exclusively dedicated to the Israel-Palestine issue. One regarding the broader Israel-Palestine conflict in general, and one in regards to my quote-unquote solution to the problem. But again, I've never really talked a lot about Ukraine a lot. And it's even funny, because sometimes I'll actually be in the realm of possibly talking about Ukraine, and then for some reason, it just doesn't happen. You might not remember, but I made a 4-hour video essay about the internet's political philosophy and trends on the internet in regards to politics. You can watch it if you want. I'll probably link it somewhere, but it's not at all finished because I tried. The way I handled that project was a little bit, let's just say, not the best. I mean, first I tried to maintain an actual just maintain the actual video schedule while editing that video, and I'm this is a bit much, so I'm gonna have to change the schedule a little bit, and then even then it still didn't give me enough time to edit the video proper, and then I ended up having to cut corners. I ended up leaving a lot of segments out. I ended up leaving a lot of dead space, and so yeah, it wasn't the best. It's a good video, somewhat. At the very least, listening to it, I'll probably give you a good. It's probably better off as a podcast than it is a fucking visual thing. At least the first parts are visually fine, but we're getting off track. Why am I bringing that up? Well, there was actually going to be. It was actually at one point. When writing it, it originally ended with January 6th attack and QAnon, and if I edited the video there, then I probably would have been able to at least somewhat save face in the video. But due to certain things keep happening, I added 2 more. I ended up writing 2 more segments that were going to be made. One segment was me talking about Elon Musk's buyout of Twitter and sort of the political fallout about that, and explaining oh yeah, Elon Musk is doing this purely to ruin the chances of he's basically doing it to run election interference. Sure enough, what ended up happening. But there was going to be another segment where I was actually going to talk about the Ukraine war. Because the way I wanted to structure the video, as if you were going down an internet rabbit hole. Literally, I say at the beginning, it's time to go down the rabbit hole. And that's kind of the point. It's sort of like an internet rabbit hole. It's as if you are going down in a video and then clicking something and then researching a little bit and then clicking on another thing and then just going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole. That's kind of what the video is supposed to be. And one of the big points of the video was that there was going to be there are 3 separate lines. One was the internet atheist community, one was 4chan, and one was disgruntled gamers. I guess those technically are 2. I guess white supremacists. I guess those ones. All those ones sort of converge together into one path, and that somehow booms together into Donald Trump. It's sort of man, these are things that are seemingly unrelated and unconnected. But then it's oh wait, this actually has somewhat big connections. And even there were some parts of the video where it's even I'd kind of be okay, maybe that is kind of a slight. Maybe I should if I knew how to stream right, I could probably stream that video and then could have sort of give commentary over that video to kind of explain certain perspectives. But there were some parts of it that probably were not really necessarily that needed and probably could have been edited out. But basically, I was gonna cover because one of the things I talked about was I was talking about how there was one specific strange section of the internet quote unquote left, which first started out being solidly in the progressive flank with Bernie Sanders, and then sort of drifted away with him via Tulsi Gabbard, and then it would drift off in its own path, which got its own segment called the post-left. I brought up elements of force the vote and all that drama, but regardless, one of the elements that was supposed to sort of solidify the post-left officially breaking its ties from the rest of the left because of the Ukraine war. the Ukraine war, surprisingly, became the thing that kind of like shifted these people into a massive direction. Like, COVID was one of the things, but the Ukraine war somehow became the big thing as well. Particularly, I was going to like mention a little bit about the anarcho-NATOist, like NAFO crowd, like Dylan Burns and Vosh type stuff. But like, I also, like, the point was more to like explain like that while these people on the quote-unquote online left were like really steadfast in support of Ukraine, there was this one section of the online left that really wasn't really that big of a fan of Ukraine. Sort of because they wanted to be contrarian, and they sort of like delved into conspiracy theories and like fell into a bunch of like conspiracy theories about the Ukraine war and blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. You know, anti-Joe Biden, that type of stuff. Regardless, again, like, ultimately, I felt like that section just wasn't good enough. It's available on my Patreon if you want to pay for it. It's just the audio. I was originally going to, like, intersplice it with, like, certain clips that would have been relevant to the segment. But, again, I didn't really feel like that section just was... I don't think that section was really that good, regardless. But, yeah, again, that point... that's another point. It's like, I had a segment for a video ready, and it was going to be about Ukraine... And then I decided ultimately it wasn't good enough, and I cut it out. Granted, I was also running out of time. That segment would have not been edited at all. But again, I just didn't really. I for some reason, again, didn't really talk about Ukraine. And it's like, yeah, why? Why did, like, I mean, a lot of people. I mean, let me check. How many people actually do talk about Ukraine in my comment section? Not a lot of people talk about Ukraine in the comment section, but like, I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that if I did a poll about like people like, do you support Ukraine, yes or no? I guarantee you a lot of you are probably gonna say yes. But again, like, I mean, I haven't talked a lot about it. And I have there are a lot of reasons why I haven't. And one of them I'll admit straight up. Apathy. Like, when the Russian invasion of Ukraine happened, it was the talk of the town. Everybody was talking about it. It was like everybody was talking about it. Voss was talking about it. Hassan was talking about it. Everybody was talking about it. Dylan Burns dedicated like his entire fucking channel to like talk exclusively about Ukraine, basically. And I just kind of felt like overexposed. Like, it was the talk of the town, the mainstream media. It was talking of the town, like, outside media. And of course, it's because it's a pretty big event to happen. It is the thing that a lot of people were like, literally felt like that would be the thing that started World War III. But I just kind of got too overexposed to it, and I kind of started tuning out. And now I know what you all might be saying. Dude, that's a horrible reason to not talk about the Ukraine war. Yeah, I fully admit that. Yeah, that is a shitty reason. And it's this, I mean, like, it's the same. I mean, it's not the same, but you may also have noticed that I don't really talk a lot about mass shootings in these videos anymore, despite the fact that that is a very common news occurrence in the United States. And again, similar to Ukraine, it's because of overexposure. And like, yeah, again, it's a shitty reason to not talk about it. And I accept that it is a selfish, it's kind of a somewhat selfish reason. But like, come on, be realistic with me, guys. Like, do you really need me to talk about the Ukrainian war? A 2K subscribe to channel that makes $7 a month on Patreon with like hundreds of dollars of medical debt. Do you really need me to talk about Ukraine? You got like your cream of the crop to talk about Ukraine. You got like so many other people you could do. We could watch. Is my commentary necessarily needed? Granted, you could say that about like literally everything that I say, but like, which probably, again, fair point. Like, is like my commentary necessarily needed for anything else, really? And one particular thing that you guys might actually be going to the comment section to type is saying something along the lines of, but then why talk about Palestine? Because so many other people are talking about Palestine too. I might hear your reply. And there are a lot of reasons for that. Like, for a starter, it's a similar thing to if you were to ask me, why don't you talk about all of the Israelis that are hurt in this conflict with the Palestinians? It's, one, a numbers game. Like, I mean, ignoring the wars in general. Like, I mean, of course, like, we can start the Palestinian-Israeli conflict all the way back to 1948, and we can start the Russia-Ukraine conflict at least up to, like, 2014. You could probably technically start, like, earlier, but, like, regardless. Let's just start with, like, the thing that got everybody's attention. Everybody's attention came from Palestine on October 7th, and everybody's attention came from Ukraine after February 14th. Was it February 14th? February 24th of 2022. Ever since that, in 3 years since the conflict started, 13,134 Ukrainians died. And in a year and a half, 50,000 Palestinians have died. No offense, but if we want to play the numbers game, one of these two is suffering a hell of a lot more than the other. Secondly, because in the situation of Israel-Palestine, my nation is currently aiding and abetting the genocide of the Palestinians. That is what's happening. And up until, recently, the US and the rest of the Western world have been lockstep in line with Ukraine to defeat Russia due to our geopolitical interests. Ukraine does not need my help advocating for its cause, because its cause is being heard. Despite all the cries of the pro-Palestinian movement, it seems that 99% of our politicians are deaf to it. And unlike the Ukraine issue, where it's it really isn't until very recently that the Ukrainian issue was even seen as controversial in Washington. For all I know, it's still being heard. I know Trump is doing some stupid negotiations with Russia that are seemingly not working out, but as far as I know, Ukraine is being invited and actually being able to allowed to discuss terms in these negotiations. Unlike every time there is a negotiation about Palestine, where literally it'll be Israel, the United States, and randomly some random other Arabic nation, and Palestine doesn't even get a fucking person to go to the place. And even despite Trump's rhetorical hate of Ukraine for not spilling non-existent dirt on Joe Biden and making him cut the Ukraine funding that led to Russia invading Ukraine in the first place, I don't know if anything has substantively changed. He invited Zelensky to the White House, and they got into a fight on the White House and be blah, 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 I don't care, you need to thank us, yeah, cool, they yell at each other in a fucking meeting. I have no clue if fucking Ukraine has lost funding due to Trump. I get conflicting news sources every time. I'll see a news source, it'll say Trump is gonna cut this Ukraine funding, and then the next day it's oh yeah, Trump is not going to cut the Ukraine funding. Literally the only thing Trump's been able to do in his fucking term is start harassing fucking Mexican people. Literally everything else that he's been saying is I'm gonna do all these tariffs, I'm gonna cut Ukraine funding, he hasn't been able to do any of the other shit. He hasn't been doing nothing of that sort. He's only been able to say anything in regards to the hating Mexicans part. Trump always chickens out. Everything else substantively, where he actually has to do actual policy, he's not gonna do. He can sit there and shit his pants all day, be Ukraine is blah 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 blah. I haven't seen a single thing that has said unequivocally that Donald Trump has cut a certain amount of money from Ukraine. And even now, his facade of Putin doing this being a good arbiter of peace is breaking, which is probably going to lead to him to just not cut Ukraine funding anymore. It's all talk, no action. There is nothing really substantive about the Ukraine policy that is worth really acknowledging or criticizing. Ukraine's gotten funding basically every single time that the war's gone on. Palestine has not been getting anything during this except for a bunch of dead children. Forgive me if one of these two sounds a little more pressing than the other. Another reason, I'll be honest, is a little bit of a lack of knowledge about the Ukraine-Russia history. I know a lot more about the Palestine issue than the fucking Ukraine issue. I know a decent amount. Don't get me wrong. This is I'll just do it. I'll tell you as much as I know about Ukraine to the best of my knowledge. This is just me going off the cuff with a slight glance at Wikipedia, to jog my memory. I'm this specific thing. Okay, so from what I know, from what I've gathered. And again, this part could be completely wrong because again, I don't know much about Ukraine. Ukraine was in a lot of territorial disputes in a long time of its early history. It ended up becoming part of the Soviet Union, and the USSR's mishandling of certain things led to a famine that we know today as the Holodomor, which some claim was an intentional genocide by the Soviets, which led to many Ukrainians to want independence from the Soviet Union, which led to some Ukrainians to run to the arms of the Nazis, thinking that this would liberate them. Then they lost. After the USSR's collapse, Ukraine became an independent nation, at least partially, because there was still a lot of politicians who were extremely pro-Russia, like the fourth president of Ukraine, Viktor Yanukovych, while others wanted to be a bit more Western-aligned, and due to this fact, there were protests known as the Euromaidan, culminating in Yanukovych's removal. During that brief time that they were picking a new leader, Russia annexed part of the Crimean Peninsula. Well, they annexed the entirety of the Crimean Peninsula. And soon, a new guy was elected to be president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. But people didn't like him, so Ukraine decided to take a risk and elect an actor with no connections to any of the major political factions in the nation named Volodymyr Zelensky, who got dragged into the Trump-Biden drama, and, well, we know where that led. I have, a little bit more info on, certain policies. Svoboda is the bad one, the Nazis. Servant of the People is a liberal populist centrist party. The Right Sector is the other Nazi party. The Radical Party is the only left-wing party in Ukraine that is not bankrolled by Russia. And the only one of the ones that I have mentioned by name that is relevant politically is Servant of the People, because it's, the actual governing party. And the rest of them are, they're there and they're prominent enough to be noticed, but not prominent enough to be actual political threats. It's like the Libertarian and Green parties. They're there, but you can't really look at the Libertarian and Green parties and then analyze the American political history. You can't analyze American political history by looking at the Greens and the Libertarians. That's stupid. It can give you some information about analyzing them, but broadly, again, you're better off not really. It's better, you'd be better off not necessarily you'd be better off, it would be better if you knew of the mainstream political parties in Ukraine, and also these parties, but if you knew more about the former, if you knew about the parties that are not those parties I mentioned, and, knowing about Svoboda, the fucking Radical Party, and the Right Sector is good, but also knowing about them exclusively is not going to help you learn a lot about Ukrainian politics. Again, I keep getting into a little bit of a here and there, ping-ponging. You get what I'm saying. They're politically fringe. They're important enough to be on the radar, but they're still rather politically fringe. Meanwhile, again, go to the Palestinian struggle against Israel, the broader history of the Zionist movement. A lot more of that is intrinsically linked with the United States of America, so naturally, there's a lot more to do with that. The U.S. didn't really get involved in the Ukraine situation until, 2014 after the Crimean invasion. And there is one more reason. It's not that, this isn't a reason necessarily why I don't talk about it. It might be partially related to why I don't talk about it, but, it's one thing that's just, I don't know, I don't think this will get me into a lot of flack, but the fact of the matter is, I don't really have a position on the Ukrainian issue that is going to earn me a lot of favor from anybody. Ever since the Ukrainian war, ever since the Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, I have had a more nuanced position than everybody else. I remember the first thing I posted immediately after Russia's invasion was a tweet that said something along the lines of, "The only army that should be in Ukraine is the armed forces of Ukraine." I tried to find the tweet, but I can't find it. But I remember distinctly posting it. I might have deleted it at some point, but regardless, my point still stands. I basically had that position the entire time. Meanwhile, around me, there seems to have been a formation of two camps on the online left. Seemingly, the two camps revolve around either sucking off Russia or sucking off Ukraine. The pro-Russia side, and I'm unequivocally calling them the pro-Russia side because that's what they are. That's a fact. That's an unequivocal fact. The people I'm referring to are people like Jackson Hinkle, people like Nico House, people like Jimmy Dore. Unequivocally pro-Russia. People like Caleb Mappin. They claim that they are anti-war. They are not. They are pro-Russian. It is the equivalent of when Charles Lindbergh claimed that he was anti-World War II. He was not really anti-World War II. He was pro-Hitler. That was a fact. It's the same reason why there a lot of conservatives basically jumped on the anti-Ukraine train. They don't. It's not that they have any particular favor on Ukraine. They don't really care about Ukraine. They like Russia, and I guess they hate Ukraine just because, again, Russia. I would still broadly call the American right in this issue pro-Russia, but they probably have slightly more nuance than because in Europe, there are in Europe, a lot of European countries just openly have parties that just openly say that they are pro-Putin. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have people like Vosh, people like Dylan Burns. I guess I don't know if anybody. I can't really think of anybody else who has that. I'm pretty sure there are a lot more people who have that position, but the thing is, there really hasn't been a crowd that I really think speaks to me on the Ukraine issue. Because again, my position is seemingly the position that is simply just the only army in Ukraine that should be in Ukraine is the Ukrainian army. And even then, that's being generous. I do not support Russia's invasion, nor do I believe the United States or Russia should be rushing into a military conflict to defend them from this. My political system, like my foreign policy stance, it's hard to define necessarily. Some people would call it anti-imperialism. I don't know if that's the term I would use, because that's the same fucking thing that people who claim that they like are anti-imperialists say, but then like they literally just support Putin and his imperialism. I mean, I guess I'm the true anti-imperialist in this issue. But my foreign policy could also be defined as like radical. That's the term that I've tried to use, radical pacifism, because it's like I'm generally just against the concept of war in general. Like, very rarely do I think war is a good idea, and I think war should always be a last resort to everything. Meanwhile, it seems like almost immediately people like Vosh and Dylan Burns, immediately after Russia invaded, their immediate response was, all right, let's go send them in, boys, and get rid of Putin. I mean, I truly believe war should always be a last resort. It might be a hot take, but like, some people like to do the thing where they say, oh, well, the United States should have gotten involved in World War II much earlier. And it's like, no, we got involved at the time that it should have been. Some people say the North should have like attacked the South much sooner to free the slaves. No, I think that there should have been routes to try and prevent things from escalating to that point. Like, I mean, yes, certain things, like, sometimes war is unfortunately inevitable. Like, again, the Civil War is a prime example. Literally, it's like they tried the peaceful route and they got beaten to death with, like, sticks. Charles Sumner didn't get beaten to death, but you get my point. Like, he was beaten for standing up peacefully against slavery, and then came figures like John Brown and Harriet Tubman, who went with the not-so-peaceful route, and sure enough, slavery was defeated. World War II, people were scared to get involved in another war because of the sins of World War I, so they did everything in their power to try and appease Hitler, and unfortunately, it led to the situation to get extremely bad. And the thing about it's like World War I. It's like World War I was a war that is 100% unjustified. Fact, that's the thing. World War I was a completely unjustified war. And that is why anti-interventionist sentiment has led to that point. And unfortunately, you need to understand the context of the broader foreign policy of the United States. We have been through constant wars that have been unjust, that have been done for bad things, that have been done for unequivocally wrong things. You can't necessarily blame a lot of people for being hesitant to want to rush into another war, even though you might think that this specific conflict might be justified. When we could argue that there are some problems and there's some things where nuances can be explained. Like, I mean, one big thing that a lot of people have been pointing to like be like, oh, well, the left is bad on foreign policy. And one particular thing is usually in regards to the Ukraine war and DSA's position on the Ukraine war. Like, because their position is that they're an anti-NATO organization. They do not believe the United States should be involved in NATO. And they fear that organizations like NATO lead to escalations of conflict rather than dealing with the issues of the conflict. And they just say, well, that's unequivocally wrong, and blah, 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 and that's bad. Why don't you analyze the times where NATO has been involved in military conflicts that have not been that justified, and have been in the problems, and have led to more imperial... I mean, again, it's not even necessarily to claim like, oh, well, does this justify the Russian invasion? No, of course not. It does not. Unequivocally, it does not. But again, you have to understand the broader foreign policy. You have to understand that the United States, we've lost the goodwill of being positive on the world scene. Even if you believe unequivocally that the United States is 100% morally justified in getting military involved in the Ukrainian war. Just think about it. The same people who are arguing that in the United States Congress were the same people who argued that the Iraq war was justified. The same people who argued that the war in Afghanistan was justified. People who argued that Libya's invasion was justified. People who argued that the bombing of Yugoslavia was justified. And most, if not all of those things I've said, have led to worse foreign policy outcomes in the world scene. Can you blame us for possibly thinking, hey, maybe we should try diplomatic measures first? Although speaking on the idea of anti-NATO organizations, I did make one funny comment very early on in the war, and it's actually very interesting. I've made this comment multiple times during the war and like everything. Like, Vladimir Putin is fucking stupid in one regard, and it's this fact. He almost got his goal. If he waited a little bit longer, he would have gotten his goal and he would have won. He would have unequivocally been in a position where he would have gotten his goals done. Because one of the big things I hate, like, Vladimir Putin, we all know this. Vladimir Putin ultimately wants the abolition of NATO. That's like unequivocal fact. Vladimir Putin views NATO as a military threat to him, so ultimately he wants NATO gone. But here's one big problem. He actually, there was some benefit to him because, like, anti-NATO sentiment was rising in a lot of countries. Because it's a common thing that we see with a lot of these things. When a thing is so commonplace and so in use, eventually people get to the point where, like, why do we have this thing at all? We're in a good, nice, happy position, so why are we going to even remotely, like why do we have this thing at all? Let's just get rid of it. And anti-NATO parties on the right and the left were growing in popularity up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And then once that happened, not only did pro-NATO parties get more support due to the fact that they just got justified and proof, like, see, this is why we're so pro-NATO, but also many of the anti-NATO parties and anti-NATO politicians just decided to drop or soften their anti-NATO rhetoric. Jean-Luc Mélenchon, Lee Anderson, Podemos, and Sumar. I mean, again, these guys were at one point like huge anti-NATO people, similar to DSA, but now they've at least softened their rhetoric a little bit to be like, well, they still ultimately, like, with the left foreign policy, they do ultimately still want the abolition. They ultimately don't want NATO to be in an existence, but they've changed their rhetoric to be a bit more like, well, I mean, we understand why for the short term it probably should still be around, which is basically my position. It's like, ultimately, I want NATO gone. Ultimately, I think we should live in a post-NATO world, but we're not in a position where that can happen. And Vladimir Putin literally just proved why that can't happen. Literally, if Putin wanted Ukraine, he should have, like, waited a couple more years and then, like, wait until all the anti-NATO parties won and then done something afterwards. I mean, yeah. Just unequivocally. But another thing about, like, being in this sort of nuanced position where it's not that I see where both sides are coming from, because, again, like, one side is openly pro-Russia, which is, like, no. But, like, me maintaining, like, an actual, like, left-wing foreign policy, or, like, at least, like, a left-wing foreign policy sense in, like, a certain political sense, allowed me to really, like, not really, like, go full, like, it allowed me to, like, at least look at one big thing. At least allowed me to, like, analyze this objective thing about the Ukrainian conflict. And it was basically one of the big things I did through the Ukrainian conflict, not really talking about the Ukrainian conflict itself, but more the sort of misinformation and bad takes surrounding it that literally don't make any sense if you do any research on any of the things regarding the subject, which I did do. I did research at least a decent bit about the subject. I mean, I would still say I'm probably more well-versed in the Israel-Palestine thing, but also that's granted because, especially recently, I've been watching and listening to a lot of YouTubers that have, that are, like, 10 times more big-brained and sourced than I am. But notice how I didn't say, like, misinformation on one side, because both sides have spread misinformation and bad takes in regards to the Ukraine war. Albeit, we all know that one side does it more than the other. The quote-unquote tankies were of the belief that Russia was blameless, the United States blew up the Nord Stream pipeline, backing Russia is somehow a just cause, Ukraine banned a bunch of political parties for literally no reason, suspended elections for absolutely no reason, the USA led the Euromaidan, Zelensky was a Nazi, Zelensky's a Satanist, nobody on the left would support Ukraine, Marjorie Taylor Greene was to the left of AOC because of Ukraine, etc., etc. Stuff that is literally just unfathomably untrue. Like, the Euromaidan conspiracy theories are really weird because it's like, it's literally taking, like, all the ones are always this. It's always this. Like, a person will post a clip of John McCain at the Euromaidan rally and be like, hey, this is cool. You guys are awesome. And it's like, see, that's proof. It's like, how does that prove anything? And then it also take, like a person who worked in the fucking, like, Obama administration, they said something along the lines of, like, oh, this is actually really good. If the Euromaidan is successful, we should really give support to the incoming Ukrainian government. And it's like, see, this is proof that they were bankrolling the Euromaidan. It's like, that literally does not prove anything. Claiming Zelensky of himself as a Nazi is just fucking unfathomable. Like, just like really? You, like, really of all the things that you're gonna do and you're gonna say, it's just like, really? The guy who ran against both Nazi parties in fucking Ukraine, he was the real Nazi the whole time. Oh yeah, and he totally banned political parties for absolutely no reason. Like, sure, granted, every single political party that he banned had literal direct connections to Russia, and there are a lot of left-wing parties in Ukraine that didn't have connections to Russia that still remain, because one of the big things that was also explicitly said, like, they were like, see, they banned the Ukrainian Socialist Party, they banned this party of socialists, see, this is proof that he hates socialists, and he's, like, banning socialist parties, like, but, like, then there's also the fucking Radical Party, which is a pretty left-wing political party, which has like, which is extremely, like, prominent in its left-wing circles, and it's still around. But one thing that really, really, really solidified my belief system about, like, these guys being completely stupid. I knew these guys were already stupid to begin with, but there's one thing that they said that was just really just like, oh, this is just unequivocally untrue. And it's the belief system. I don't know if I said it in, like, the rant before. I might have skipped it in my notes, but, I mean, it's in the notes, but, like, I might have, like, accidentally skipped it over when I was reading it. But, like, there is the belief system that they have where it's like, nobody on the left could ever support Ukraine in no certain, like, there's no possible, ever, little bit, even remotely possible way that a person on the left could ever support Ukraine. And that everybody who does is, like, a liberal or, like, a secret right-winger and blah, blah, blah. It's like, really? Really? You actually believe that? Meanwhile, the Zapatista army in Mexico, the anarcho-socialist militant group in Mexico, like, unequivocally 100% supports Ukraine defending itself against Russia. Like, they are further left than any of the fucking losers that claim that they are, like, somehow the vanguards of, like, fucking socialism or communism or whatever, or, like, left-wing populism or whatever. Like, further left than Jimmy Dore, further left than Hinkle, further left than Haas, further left than all these fucking losers. Just unequivocally, these guys are unequivocally further to the left than any of these fuckers on Twitter. And they live those principles every day. The notion that Ukraine support determines your left-right stance is stupid. I've said this before in a different podcast. There are multiple different reasons why you could support or oppose a conflict in this situation. And I would think that a majority of the pro-Ukraine sentiment, at the very least, stems from more of an anti-Russia sentiment. And I hold an anti-Russia sentiment. Like, I mean, I refrain from saying, quote unquote, I support Ukraine, just because of other things I'm going to get into. It's like that quote from fucking General Hux in the fucking Star Wars movie, I don't care if blank wins, I care that blank loses. It's basically me. It's like, I don't care if Ukraine wins, I just want Russia to lose. There are left-wing and right-wing reasons to support or oppose Ukraine. The left-wing reason to support Ukraine is simply you hate Russia. The right-wing reason to support Ukraine is that you hate Russia because of Cold War, while furthering America's geopolitical interests. The left-wing reason to quote-unquote oppose Ukraine necessarily would be, like, criticism of, like, the Western foreign policy and that, like. And the right-wing reason to oppose Ukraine is, of course, because they don't like Donald Trump. And it's these people being stupid in regards to their analysis of politics, and I should include, like, a link about, like, my populist, was it? No, it's like, I forget if it's the Political Compass video or, like, it's something, a video where I go into depth about, like, the fucking, like, I go in depth about this in a different podcast. I'll probably find it somewhere, but, like, regardless, the point is, there are, like, trying to claim that a person for this reason supporting this cause is somehow your ally is just ludicrous. There is not a single left-wing reason to support Russia. In fact, one of the most left-wing modern political figures in Russia, Ilya Ponomarev, fled to Ukraine and joined their military and has basically become a Nelson Mandela figure there. Nelson Mandela during his sabotage era especially, a person that is commonly being used now to bring about the cause of a different nation. And one of Ukraine's most left-wing political figures, Ole Lyashko, gladly supports Ukraine fighting back against their invaders. The notion that supporting Ukraine makes you less left-wing is stupid. It's more analysis of why you support Ukraine. Claiming the squad is worse for voting for Ukraine funding is simply stupid. Much more stupid, claiming that Marjorie Taylor Greene is more left than them because she didn't is also stupid. It shows a completely stupid surface-level analysis about that. But again, that's mostly from that side of the aisle. There are still some people who, on the pro-Ukrainian left, that have some bad takes and, like, misinformation that is a bit, like, it's not as much, but it's enough to make me go, like, I don't know. It's just me giving some criticisms to them, because, like, it's a thing. It's like putting me in I don't want to be put in any of these camps. I don't want to be put in any of these camps. Just like the school teachers used to say, I'm a little bit special. Like, the first one is one I've been saying a lot. This is what I'm saying a lot, and it's like, yeah, just the anarcho-NATOist thing really threw me off. Okay, for those who don't know, the anarcho-NATOists, because I mentioned them like multiple fucking times, it's basically a fake political ideology that Vosh started, which is basically the claim that NATO is a vanguard for socialism and anti-imperialism. Like, he made flags, people make anarcho balls about them, there's just a lot of things that, like, happen with this sort of, like, anarcho-NATOist philosophy. And, like, people, and that's the thing, I've mentioned this a couple of times before, but then people say, like, no, you don't understand, it's just a bit, it's just a joke, it's a haha joke, it's a funny haha joke. But here's the thing, that's not true. I mean, Vosh can, like, paint it in whatever fucking, like, funny language he likes to say. And this is, again, I guess people, like, learning firsthand, you're like, wait, hold on, I thought you, like, said that you liked Vosh at one point. Yeah, at one point, but this, even when I used to be a fan of his, even this, I was just like, this is just stupid. And I noticed this comparison, like, I don't know if doing the research for that 4-hour video essay led me to have this analysis, or if I already had an analysis similar to this when the video that this is based on first came out. But, like, there was a video released by iDubbbz, who is now a a vanguard for the pro-Palestinian cause, based Ian, but he made a video about the famous neo-Nazi Sam Hyde, he basically went into an analysis about, like, how the alt-right leads into, like, their rhetoric and pushes their rhetoric in the internet sphere. And he goes through something called the circle of irony. And it's a very good, like, analysis of irony. And it's basically, like, he explains it like this. Like, you see, first, you have sincerity. Like, very clearly, like, sincerity. Like, expressing your sincere belief system or expressing a sincere thought. And then you have irony. In this sense, it would be, you would say a statement that is, like, the opposite of what you believe. Like, you mean the opposite. Then you have post-irony, where the joke in, like, the statement is that you are saying something that is, like, you're saying something, like, just unequivocally something, but then the way you're saying it, the way you're rhetorically using it, makes it sound like you're implying the opposite, or that it has some broader, different meaning that isn't being expressed. And then lastly, you have meta-irony, where everything gets really muddy, where you basically say a statement, and the way you say the statement, it makes it, like, really imply that you're, like, you're seriously, like, joking, but it's just, like, there is literally nothing remotely, it's, the way he also puts it is that he puts it on the circle right where sincerity is, because it unequivocally is sincerity, and that's what the alt-right used when they started doing their thing. They would use meta-irony and post-irony to basically express their white supremacist views, but say it in a way that made it sound like they were, like, doing funny haha meme jokes. A thing that is still being used to this day, because I posted a video where one of the parts of it, I was talking about how, like, the internet it was, like, the third positionist video, I think, where it's, like, the internet went through its Nazi phase, it went through its, communist phase, so now it's going to go through its third positionist phase. And when I mentioned, like, the Nazi part, I put the Kekistan flag to reference the alt-right and, like, Gamergate and that kind of stuff. And then a person in the comment section literally tried to say, like, no, you don't understand. Like, that flag, it's modeled after the Nazi flag as, like, a bit. It's like a joke. It's like a haha funny joke. You just don't get it. You just don't understand it. It's like, and then I replied literally being like, people flew those flags at the January 6th insurrection trying to overthrow the government. They were just doing that as, like, a bit. Like, I mean, like, it's, like, funny. It's like, oh yeah, they were just like using that flag to overthrow the U.S. government as, like, a bit. That was, like, a funny haha bit. It's the same thing like Elon Musk. It's like, they, like, are basically trying to be like, look, he was just doing a thing. It's like, no, he was just doing it as, like, a bit. Oh, he was just unequivocally, like, just, like, not, like, doing a funny ha joke. Like, he was just unequivocally doing a Nazi salute. And it's the same thing that some people use with Sam Hyde. Like, I pointed, like, Sam Hyde is a neo-Nazi, and they'll be like, you don't understand his comedy. It's like, he gave money to a neo-Nazi to get out of legal trouble for being a neo-Nazi. He was just doing that as like a bit. It's like a comedy bit. Haha, it was just a joke. It's like, what? No, it's not a joke. It's saying all these far-right figures and far-right things. Like, they'll make a joke about trans suicide rates, and then it's like, but what are their actual beliefs on trans issues then? If it's all a joke, then surely they would have different views in that, right? And then you get into their actual views, and it's like, no, they just unequivocally believe that. And I think the anarcho-NATOist thing is exactly that. Like, I mean, Vosh might say, like, Vosh and all of his fans might think it's like, oh, it's like a funny haha bit. And, like, oh, we just, like, we're saying, like, Ukraine, we're saying, like, NATO and, like, the stuff is, like, it's like a bit. It's like a bit. We're saying, like, they're, like, a vanguard or something that, it's funny. It's a bit. But then when it gets into his actual literal commentary, he'll say things like, oh, AOC and the squad are bad because of the slight criticism they've ever said about Ukraine, ever, and that's like bad foreign policy. That's bad. People who express the mildest critique of like American foreign policy or whatever, they're like evil and tankies and blah blah blah. Hassan doesn't unequivocally say Slava Ukrainia, so I guess he's an evil tanky who's secretly being bankrolled by Russia. Like, him and Dylan's actual belief systems on these issues do not seem any remotely different from any of the, like, bits that they keep doing about Russia and Ukraine. As Idub said, if you're not bringing anything to the table to say something, why are you saying it? Either A, you're bad at irony, or you're just being sincere. Like, in that same vein, like, that is led, like, I mentioned a little bit of it in the before, like, literally every single person who has, like, an ideological, like, the left wing in the United States has been traditionally opposed to militarism, like, you know, all the way back to, like, Debs and, like, whether they be full-on socialists or even, like, more, like, just, like, progressive liberal type figures, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, I guess Alan Grayson, Dennis Kucinich, those types of people, they are traditionally less prone to wanting the U.S. to get involved in military conflicts overseas and stuff. Like, and when they express these actual views, they are labeled as things like tanky. And like, what ended up happening with the Progressive Caucus? The Progressive Caucus published a letter stating that they wanted to push for a diplomatic end to the Ukraine war, specifically citing that Biden and Zelensky both stated they wanted that to happen. Like, they said that they wanted a diplomatic route. Like, they quoted them in the fucking letter and said, like, oh, yes, we must do this. And then a lot of people on the so-called left started saying, the Progressive Caucus has gone full-on tanky. They're tankies now. I think I should make a fucking video where I go about, like, how tanky... unfortunately, the term tanky is kind of dead now. That's sad. I like the term tanky. Tanky was a good term, but now tanky is dead. When people call me a tanky, and then other people call me, like, a fascist and liberal, you know, maybe these terms are meaningless now. The Progressive Caucus letter explicitly reaffirmed their support for Ukraine and denounced Russia. And they said they wanted to find a peaceful resolution rather than having a prolonged conflict that would hurt everybody. The Progressive Caucus was lambasted for that statement by people on the alleged left. And they had to rush to revoke that statement and basically say, hello, that wasn't actually meant to be sent out. So what does it mean? Like, do you all not want a peaceful resolution to the Ukraine war? It's a similar thing to, like, the fucking, like, DSA fucking, like, statement on Ukraine and NATO. Like, I mean, again, like, I read the statement right before doing this episode, and I'm like, is this really that controversial? I mean, again, like, if you want with consistent left-wing foreign policy would be to move to an anti-militarist world, to move past the need for imperialism, both Western and Eastern, or whatever, no more imperialism at all, no more need for wars, no more need for that. So then by definition, no more need for NATO. Again, I've stated that I don't necessarily agree with, like I think they say in like the DSA, like, bylaws, like, oh, unequivocal, like, pulling out of NATO. It's like, unfortunately, that's just not a viable position. Like, it's like the same thing where it's like, we can't just magically snap our fingers and go like, oh, well, not everybody in the United States has healthcare. It's like, no, there has to be, like, there is a process we have to go to. Like, Bernie Sanders, his bill doesn't, like, magically, like, make Medicare for all, like, magically happen. It would be a process that would take at least 4 years to fully implement. Like, and DSA is an organization that is, like, unequivocally more left-wing and more, like, radical in a lot of its positions. Even more than, like, again, like DSA politicians and DSA electeds, they have to take more moderate-ish positions on these issues because they understand. I think DSA has the position like there should be no ever any remote anything to, like, aid fucking Israel or whatever, and then they still back to Bernie, who reaffirms Israel's right to exist. And most of the DSA electeds, they don't say, like, they just don't unequivocally say, like, oh, Israel should just immediately dissolve itself immediately. Not even Rashida, not even, like Rashida's, like, the only one that, like, has remained fully endorsed by DSA, and even she didn't vote for the bill that explicitly said about Israel's, even she didn't explicitly vote against the bill that said, like, Israel has an unequivocal right to exist. she voted present by the DSA's own logic, then shouldn't she be removed from the organization as well? Because she didn't unequivocally say Israel does not have a right to exist anymore or at all? Like literally, unequivocally, like isn't that the case? No, because they understand there's like gonna be a little bit of a here and there in regards to actual policy. Like if DSA ever wins fucking Congress, they're not gonna immediately get out of NATO. That's not gonna happen. That's just unequivocally not gonna happen. It's more of the belief system of wanting to have a post-NATO world. Another thing that's a slight problem for me is like the pretending that Ukraine has no far right at all. Like I mean, the tankies peoples. I mean, I guess I'm still using the term tanky, even though I've already said that term is probably dead. But they people like them pretend that everybody in Ukraine is basically an SS officer. Meanwhile, these guys seem to pretend that, like, Ukraine has, like, one Nazi in its entire history. Like, I mean, again, I'm acknowledging Svoboda and the right sector. They are prominent enough to be on the radar, but not prominent enough to, like, actually be, like, really contentious. But there is still a long history of Ukraine that has some hard right issues. Like, hard right issues of the past and present. Like, Azov Battalion. It's like Azov Battalion. I should have mentioned the Azov Battalion before, but like from what I gather, the Azov Battalion, because the tanky side says that Azov Battalion is like basically every single member of the fucking Ukrainian military is in the Azov Battalion. Meanwhile, these guys basically pretend like, oh, Azov Battalion is not like prominent at all, but it's like Azov is prominent, and from what I gather, it's like what is the real case. Like it's somewhere in between. Like it's not like Azov is not prominent at all in Ukraine, but to pretend that it is a very big source of the military is not true. Like, I mean, remember, the Canadian Parliament was like, we need to, like, show our support for Ukraine. So they invited a guy who was like, this Ukrainian soldier fought valiantly against the Red Army to liberate Ukraine from the evil Soviets. And everyone was cheering, and it's like, wait a second, this guy's an actual Nazi. It's like Zelensky was there. They cheered for him. He's a literal objective Nazi, and he was cheered by Zelensky. Like, I mean, again, like, to pretend that there isn't, like, I mean, again, like, it's not, like, not precedented to acknowledge that there is a pretty decent hard right in Ukraine. Russia, of course, is lying about how it is they're basically overrepresenting it, and also pretending they have some sort of moral high ground, even though Russia's government is run by neo-Nazis like Putin, who is best friends with a literal fascist named Alexander Dugin. But the one that really got me to be a bit more like, this one is gonna be a little bit of a hot take for a lot of you guys. This is gonna be a little bit of a hot take for you guys, so bear with me, because it's just, I guess I just gotta say it. A lot of people on the online left, I guess I'll phrase this in the meme. I'll phrase this in the variation of the meme, because there's a very prominent internet meme that goes around about people who have certain flags in their bio. And it revolves around the Israeli flag, the Ukrainian flag, the Russian flag, and the Palestinian flag. And basically, they take the four variations of it and try to label it in some sort of ideological framework. But usually every single one of these like memes are usually made by someone who at the end of the day tries to say like, oh, the good side, the good people are the ones who have Palestine flag and Ukrainian flag in bio. To which I say, the base ones are the ones with Palestine flag in bio. Because the comparisons of Ukraine and Palestine are just wrong. Like, I'm sorry guys, I'm just being upfront. Like, I mean, again, like, I mean, I can kind of see what you guys are trying to say, but, like, if you actually do research into Ukrainian politics and Zelensky and his foreign relations and his statements on the Palestine conflict, you're just unequivocally wrong. Zelensky was one of the first world leaders to denounce the October 7th attacks and claim that Israel had every right to self-defense, which has led to around 50,000 Palestinians to have been brutally massacred by Israel, mass starvations, possible forced annexation of land, literally a genocide. I mean, I saw that he said something very recently that said, like, oh, well, I believe that humanitarian aid needs to go to Palestine. It's like, he's still friends with Israel. He still aids and abets Israel. He took a fucking photo not long ago with Isaac Herzog, a guy who celebrated the fact that the Israeli settlements are a human shield for Israel. But saying this is wrong, apparently. You can't acknowledge this fact. You can't acknowledge the fact that Lula acknowledged this fact. Again, it's just like back to like the whole thing about the, because some people also now go like, oh, well, Lula's a little crazy now because he's not backing Ukraine 100 wholeheartedly. It's like, he supports Palestine. That's the base position. The base position is supporting Palestine. Ukrainian position is literally, there basically is no base position on Ukraine. The only position is cringe, that for like Russia, like supporting Russia is the cringe position. Everything else can be classified as a mid position. The vast majority of Ukrainians support Israel over like literally, I'm looking at the chart on the wiki page. Their support for Palestine is like tiny. Is like literally tiny. Like some Western Voshite on fucking Twitter is like, no, you see, actually, the plight of the Palestinian people is the same plight as the plight of the Ukrainian people. Yeah, it's the exact same plight. Ukraine gets literally all the aid in the back from the Western world. Palestine gets nothing except for murdered children. They're exactly the same. It's exactly the same. They don't even fucking like each other. It's the exact same. The only time that Zelensky's ever been critical of Israel and stuff is like when Israel starts not supporting them. In 2020, at the behest of Zelensky, Ukraine literally left one of the UN, like the committee, he left the committee on the exercise of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people. Like, the UN, it's a UN thing that literally explicitly supports the right of the Palestinian people. Zelensky approved leaving that organization. Zelensky, like most liberals, only shifted when Israel's actions got so bad that he like unequivocally just had no other option than to denounce them. But again, we're supposed to like think that like, we're supposed to think, Ukraine and Palestine, they're like buddy, they're like the exact same struggle. They like solidarity, power towards each other. But it's like, doing any sort of analysis on this would make you understand why, of course, Ukraine sees themselves more in Israel than they do with Palestine. And it's simply because Ukraine wants to be like the Israel of Europe. They want to be the country that gets unlimited aid from the West because it allows us to be perpetually involved in their continental affairs to serve our geopolitical interests. That's what Israel is to the Middle East. Israel's there so that we can perpetually be involved in the Middle East. Be like, yeah, fuck Iraq. They're trying to hurt Israel. We gotta go help them. Fuck Iran. They're trying to hurt Israel. We gotta go protect them. Fuck Afghanistan. They're trying to hurt Israel. We gotta protect them. Of course, Zelensky wants that for Ukraine, because that way he can guarantee Ukraine will always be protected. It's why he wants to join NATO, so he will be like, I'm in the in crowd, I'm in the group now, I'm with the big boys can be cool with me. To pretend that's not the case is just laughable. Like unequivocally, of course the United States is involved with the Ukrainian issue because it's furthering our geopolitical interests. The US has barely ever done anything remotely for the positivity of the world. Any good thing that the US foreign policy has done at this point is essentially just like an accident. Like, in a very baseline sense, I can see what you guys kind of mean. Like, I can kind of see what you're trying to say when you try to compare Ukraine and Palestine. You know, more over comparing, like, Russia to Israel. Like, Russia and Israel are using, like, the vague territorial claim BS from, like, a 10 million years ago with a BS claim, like, we're actually defending ourselves from the evil aggressors that are doing literally nothing to us. I get that perspective. But Zelensky clearly doesn't seem to get the memo because he's like full-heartedly like, yes, Israel can do that because they were attacked and they can defend themselves. Before someone tries to take that part out of context, I'm saying geopolitically, Ukraine wants to be in a similar situation to Israel, to have the full throttled backing of the West. That is what they want. That's the only comparison I am trying to make with Ukraine and Israel. It's moreover a criticism of why the United States wants to be so involved with Ukraine, rather than like an actual analysis of like the Ukrainian specific issue. Because like, again, like Ukraine didn't do anything wrong. Ukraine was minding its own business, and then Russia tried to claim it for territorial BS, like, we own this land like 15 million years ago, so we get to claim it now. I even said, like, in the past, like, if you wanted to, like, I mean, there is no scenario where Russia is blameless. There's no scenario where Israel is not blameless for the conflict. If you wanted to pull a BS, like, middle ground situation where you can at least point in the direction of, like, oh, well, there's some people on this side also did, like, some slightly weird things, like, that's one thing. Like, I mean, for the fucking, like, Russia-Ukraine thing, like, you could say, like, you could make, like, if you made the claim, like, oh, well, like, encroachment on Russia because of the Western, like, whatevers, or, like, if you were to do the whole, like, well, Hamas did they did attack on October 7th, that did happen. It's like, if you wanted to make the claim that both sides have some blame to it, that's one thing, but, like, at the end of the day, ultimately, the blame mostly falls on one side, Israel and Russia. So yeah, after all that rambling, I guess I'll just give some point-by-point, like, clarifications of my positions. Maybe if someone comments and, like, asks for more clarification, I could probably explain it a bit better, but, like, regardless. What I have here is just, like, some notes about, like, just clarification of certain positions. Russia invading Ukraine was bad, wrong, gross, disgusting, and Ukraine has every right to fight back. Russia is the very clear aggressor of the conflict, and I hope they lose. I do not believe the US should be sending military aid to Ukraine. Diplomatic aid, sure. If we want to go to the table to try and negotiate a peaceful resolution, sure. What should that peaceful resolution be? I don't really know. If Ukrainians are fleeing and want to seek refuge in the United States, that's absolutely 100% on the table. Welcome aboard. I am not going to unilaterally say everybody who supports or supported Ukraine at some point is like an evil, gross, not real leftist. I mean, if you're one of those anarcho-NATOist types, then I will unequivocally say that. Yeah, if you're an anarcho-NATOist and you're like, NATO is actually a vanguard of socialism, or like NATO was like a good moral place of happiness or whatever, then no, unequivocally you're not a leftist if that's the case, if you believe that. If you're like, look, in this particular situation, NATO is doing a good thing even if they're not trying to, then it's like, that's one thing. Like, I mean, when NATO did a lot of shitty things, I'm pretty sure there were some people who did get saved that probably would have needed to be saving. A broken clock, like, gets right once in a while. While I ultimately would want NATO to be gone at some point with the ideas of no more military, cops, etc., that kind of stuff, we are not in any position to advocate for that in the current day and age or in the near future. It's not like a deal breaker because really at the end of the day, that is, I mean, NATO abolition or NATO leaving NATO is like basically unequivocally like a position that is just so out there that it's just not happening. And sure, a lot of the things that I advocate for are things that are probably never going to happen anytime soon, but like at least those positions are fun. Like, I mean, like leaving NATO is like not really like a fun thing to advocate for. It's like more of a negative than a positive. Not necessarily the negative, like, oh, it's going to lead to negative outcomes, which it probably would in some cases lead to some sort of negative outcomes. But like the point is, it is a position that like us doing something that is like reneging on something, not like doing something good. Like, I mean, like abolishing U.S. copyright law and like freeing like the world's like copyright, whatever. That's a positive thing. Sure, it's never going to happen, but that's a nice thing to talk about and advocate for. Okay, next is the whole Ukraine NATO ship membership thing. Like, because that's the thing that some people say, like, oh, like, what about Ukrainian and NATO membership? Well, that's not my call at all. Like, I mean, Ukraine's a sovereign nation. They can choose whether or not they want to be in a military alliance or not. That's their right. Putin is 100% an authoritarian, reactionary tyrant, and hopefully Russians come to their senses at some point. Zelensky is a lib. He's a not-so-bad lib. I put him in the top 10, like, presidents, like, podcasts a while ago, but that was mostly because, like, it was like, well, I mean, him not fleeing immediately when things got tough, that's something somewhat admirable. But he's still a lib, and if Ukraine holds elections at some point in the future, I probably wouldn't support him. Like, I mean, Ole Lyashko is the guy that I would probably want for Ukrainian president. And make love, not war. I am unequivocally opposed to war, unless it's a literal last resort, and we should try diplomacy first, always. So hopefully that answers the question, what about Ukraine? I talked about Ukraine now it's time for me to, like, hide in a hole and not talk about it for, like, 15 more years. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell to notify when a future video of mine comes out. And if you want more content from me, consider supporting me on Patreon.